Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Podcast Pasta. That's a podcast that's like pasta, not the podcast that's about pasta. As always, I'm your host, Mike. And today I am joined with Max. You are, or AKA Saxon. You are, I think if I'm reading this correctly, a digital artist. You focus mainly on character work, and I had your profile pulled up here. You love to draw cyborgs, monsters, girls, and cyborg monster girls. Max, how are you doing today?
Hello, it's me. I'm doing good, thanks, Mike. How are you?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. Now, I know I just gave you a very brief introduction. This is always my go-to starter, but I guess you want to kind of expand on that in your own words and explain what you do and what motivates the work that you put out.
Sure. It pretty much is all summed up there in the profile. I'm a digital artist, digital illustrator. I like drawing cyborgs, monsters, girls, cyborg monster girls, fantasy stuff as well, but generally I just enjoy drawing characters and worlds and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's more or less, whatever I feel, whatever strikes me. I'm a hobbyist artist, so it's my passion and what I enjoy doing. So yeah, whatever sort of inspires me or comes into my head, what I like to draw.
Now, usually with this program, I apologize because a lot of these questions kind of come off of like, oh, you're interviewing for a job, but I like the framing device for some of them. I've had a few artists on the program here. They come from like several different backgrounds. Some people like have studied art in like a collegiate sense. Others have pursued it more as like a hobby for themselves. I guess to kind of complete this story for you and to kind of build more of a background for yourself for my listeners, what is your background with art? Like, is this something that you've studied in like quote unquote official setting, or is it something that you've just pursued as more of a hobby?
Yeah, so a bit of both worlds. So I've been drawing since I was little, since I was a kid. I've always loved doing it. Both my parents are pretty creative types, so it just kind of came naturally. I drew all through school. I think in high school was when I kind of started taking it seriously and trying to draw with some, instruction and direction, with some sense about what I was doing and trying to improve, consciously trying to improve. I did go to university. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Animation from Queensland University of Technology in Australia. But I think mostly I'm a hobbyist artist and I've just self-taught and sort of just followed my own course and sort of learned as I go. So, a bit of everything.
So, as as I described you, like a character artist, you have this very specific focus on like a lot of your pieces. Is there a reason why you pick the subjects that you do, like, cyborgs, monster girls, or girls, what have you, for like your art pieces, or is it just like something that always has interested you?
It's something that's always interested me. A lot of my influence and sort of my inspiration to draw, my dad had a lot of comic books, and so I was inspired by, superheroes, and there were a lot of female characters in there I really dug. And he had a lot of heavy metal comics as well, the European Heavy Metal magazine. And so that sort of gave me a bit of a passion for strong, babes, I guess, with like cyborgs and sci-fi and kind of weird, a bit sort of out there kind of designs. But yeah, I think that's mainly it. Those influences. I really love those comics. And then when I got into manga, sort of more into that route, and just kind of kept going in that direction, really. And it's just what I like. So yeah, mostly it's just what I'm into.
I was wondering, do they still? I don't know if you would know. Do they still run the heavy metal like magazine? Because I know it mostly for like the two animated features that they did, like Heavy Metal, and then like I think it was like Heavy Metal 2000. I think is like the one like a lot of people think about. But do you know if they still run the original magazine?
I think they do. I think it's just come back. I think it sort of went away and then came back and then went digital and then back to. I think they're doing. I don't know for sure, but it is back in some capacity. I know that much. It never goes away completely. It's always around in some capacity, which I'm happy for. I like it. I really like the. It's got weird stories and like, stuff that you don't usually find in sort of more popular comics, I think. So I'm glad it's around.
Oh yeah, me too. Because it's also like a very particular aesthetic that I know isn't necessarily as popular anymore as it was back in like God, what was the heyday? Like 80s, 90s for heavy metal.
The 80s, yeah.
Yeah, 80s.
80s
Yeah.
was, I mean, 80s and 90s, but mostly 80s, I think, yeah, was its big, big heyday, yeah.
Um. So I'm not sure. I never know the full demographics of who listens to episodes. I assume that most of the time it's people coming to listen to you more so than coming to listen to
Mhm.
me. But and sometimes I kind of use this show as like kind of like I guess teachable moments for like people that might, let's say, aspire to like do what you do and to like aspire to in particular like they like your style and they want to get into art like you. So I guess if you were to talk to a person like that, what do you think is something that you would advise them on if they're first starting out into like doing art?
Yeah, for sure. I think if they're just starting out, I think a sort of important thing in this kind of these days, because when I started out drawing, it was before social media, before the internet, as big as it is, kind of thing, before it was such a prominent aspect of it. I think it's really important to find a community and find your tribe, I guess, so to speak, people who like what you draw, you like what they draw. Try and find sort of a more close knit kind of group of people you can work with and bounce ideas off and critique each other's art and sort of something a bit more intimate. Because I do feel like if you just dive right into the social media, Twitter, Tumblr, posting kind of thing, you get attached to those numbers. And I think that's really, when you start attaching those numbers to it, it makes it sucks the joy out of it. I think it's important again, you're supposed to, when you're just starting out, you should be having fun. It should be all about having fun, drawing what you want to draw, doing what you want to do, just like the love of the game, so to speak. So I think an important part of that is finding people you like and people who share your sort of passion and building that kind of community first before you can post to Twitter and stuff, but don't pay attention to those numbers. Just do it for the love of the game. That's my advice. I think when you're starting out, it's very important.
I guess that's kind of a follow up to that too. Do you are there any like big mistakes that you often see? Begin, yeah. Are there often any big mistakes that like artists first starting out make that you would advise against them? Like that I guess you would caution them against.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd reiterate that whole don't get attached to likes and things would be the first advice I'd say. Again, like I think that's really worth reinforcing. But to be honest, I think a big mistake is worrying too much about mistakes, especially if you're just starting out. Like you've got to enjoy it. Like because I mean, if you're doing it for money, the money's not great. If you're doing it for respect, it's not great. If you're doing it for all these if you're not enjoying it, there's not a whole lot of reason to draw, I don't think, to start off drawing. So when you're starting out, don't worry about too many of the rules or doing the right thing or drawing the right thing or if you're practicing the right skills, just do what you love and just fill up sketchbooks with whatever you enjoy drawing. If it's like animals or vehicles or people or whatever, just go for it. Give it your all, and then once you've got a habit, once you know what's fun about it, then you can start to figure out where you need to aim and where you need to build skills. But at the beginning, it's just got to be a blast because why else are you doing it?
Point. So from what I've seen of your work, a lot of it's character art, and a lot of it seems to be like, I mean, you do take some inspirations from certain things, obviously, but a lot of it seems to be like kind of original characters is what I kind of gauge it from. But no, like real, I guess, like comics or like no real like narratives, which I know like a lot of other artists like to do with their OCs to, expand the lore, to expand their stories. It, I guess I should ask to clarify. Does that exist with your work, and I just haven't been able to find it, or do you not do like comics at the moment?
No, you've got it right. I don't really do comics at the moment. I haven't. It's kind of a bad habit that I like the design part of it. I like sort of shaping the character, the clothes, the cybernetics, scars, and hairstyles, and all those sort of. I think that's the story in a way. Is like telling the story through the way the character is, and maybe too much in that I don't, and then I kind of forget about actually giving them a story or a name or a background kind of thing. It's something I want to get better at. Something I want to look more towards actually creating some stories, and not necessarily comics, but like illustrations and scenes, put characters in scenarios that give them a
Like
bit of
broader
story.
narratives. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the goal. That's kind of what I want to start aiming towards, is filling it out a bit more and giving them a bit more. But you are correct in that it is mostly I just draw characters and just like what's in my head at the moment.
Yeah, because I know, like, I mean, it's like a mix of some things. Like, I know some artists like to basically do it all their own, like, designing the characters, doing like the writing and the world building for those characters, and all the periphery stuff like coloring, line work, all that. And I know sometimes, but other artists like to team up with other people. I think it's also like pretty big in like the mainstream comics where you would have like an artist and then you'd have like a writer doing their own thing. Is that something that you would consider for yourself, like teaming up with somebody to do that? I don't know if, granted, I don't know if you have the resources to do that, but just to like help you focus, I guess, on the aspect that you like more, which is, like you said, the designing aspect.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to sort of collab with people. I've had some friends. It's a difficult because I have a job, so I work full time, so it is difficult to sort of find the time because comics don't come as naturally to me. It's a bit more. I have to sort of focus a bit more and sort of push myself a bit harder. So it is. I have some friends. I did a little comic with my friend Henry Goldner, who's a writer, and he does some great comics and stuff. He's done some great stuff with other artists. We've done a couple of things with him, but not much because I have a tendency to sort of not plan it out properly and not get as far as I'd like to. But it is something I'd like to do more of. Yes, definitely.
I guess kind of also building on that question too. What is like, because artists take inspiration from each other, they're inspired by each other. What is your like dream collaboration or like the dream project that you want to be a part of?
It's a good question. I mean, I'd love to get. I mean, I really love the Shadowrun games and the Shadowrun tabletop RPG. So if I could end up doing something related to that, artwork for a book, a supplement, or artwork for a game, or just helping out with the game in some aspect, that would be rad. Just working with those in that universe. Other than that, just like, yeah, just working on a game or something, or I just love. I want to be in that because what I miss most about uni is that collaborative environment, working with a lot of people in a studio and sort of an area, just being in that creative kind of boiling pot with all the ideas flying around. So yeah, I'd be up for anything really, just working with people and bouncing ideas and that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I always I'm not too familiar with like Shadowrun because I always kind of mix it up with Cyberpunk, but I know they're like Cyberpunk 2077, but I know they're different because like from my understanding, well, at least the way that I had it explained to me was like Shadowrun is like, oh, if you take kind of a D&D setting, like you have like fantasy races and stuff, but like you excel them to like a futuristic setting, so they exist in that futuristic setting. God, I don't know if I sound like that's not right though, that's like a very bare bones way of explaining it.
Close enough. Like it's basically a cyberpunk, but with orcs and elves that kind of thing. Yeah, it's not. It's kind of the other way around. Instead of accelerating a fantasy world, it's our world, but then elves and orcs showed up. They arrived, and then the world went off on its own kind of divergent path of crazy magic mixed with cyberpunk technology kind of thing. So, but you more or less, you got the right idea. In terms of visualizing it, you've got the right idea.
I guess, well, I'm kind of curious because, like, you do say you work full time, so I guess I have to throw this out there though. Are there any like bigger projects on the horizon that you are working on at the moment that you could talk about? If you can't, just feel free to say so.
Yeah, I should point out that I work full time, but it's not a creative job. I don't work in the creative industry. I have an admin job that pays for my rent and food and keeping me alive costs, and then art is what I do on the side. I have no. I'll lay it out there. I have no big projects in progress at the moment. I hope to soon. That's the terrible thing. I have concepts of a plan, but at this point, I have nothing concrete yet. So I will make temporary expectations. There's not going to be any big reveals anytime soon, but hopefully I'll be starting something soon.
Well, I'll look forward to that. I guess. My friend wanted me to ask you this because I do sometimes share like what I'm doing with like just some close friends, and he pointed out that like you're like the avatar that you used to represent yourself, that it kind of reminded him of like I think Toribot, Akira Toriyama, like he would like represent himself as like a little cyborg dude. Was that the inspiration for yours?
Not specifically, funnily enough. At least not that I recall. I think I've always loved artists representing themselves with characters or drawing little, instead of drawing themselves, they'll draw something as a stand-in for themselves. I think the first artist I actually noticed it with and really liked it was Frank Cho. And he would always draw himself as a chimp. Like whenever he showed up in a comic to talk to the viewer directly, he would just draw a chimp in his shirt and say, "Hi, I'm Frank Cho," kind of thing. I think eventually I did see the Toriyama bot, and that must have worked its way in. But the initial inspiration was, Frank Cho's chimp character, and I was like, I like that. That's fun. It's a fun way of doing it. And so, he kind of eventually I sort of adopted this character as me, so to speak, my little cyber guy, I call him.
You hear that, Bonsai? It wasn't inspired by Akira Toriyama.
Not directly.
Directly, right. But oh my God, you know what? I forgot to ask. How much time did you have with me?
Sorry?
No, like how much time do you have to like talk, just so I gauge the questions correctly?
Yeah, I've got no. Yeah, I'm whenever. I've got no plans for the rest of the night. So
awesome.
The sun comes up.
I noticed that so I found you through Twitter, right? Because I get like a lot of artist feed stuff just by, who I follow, who I engage with, the algorithm, what have you. But you also host your work on Pivx and Tumblr, right? So I guess I'm kind of curious about your experience still using Tumblr, because I know they had like that exodus a while back from like, they having a ban on, and I'm trying to ride the YouTube guidelines here, but more spicier content on their platform, that they had a huge exodus of artists from that. So I guess I'm kind of curious as to your experience, like you using it in 2025. How has it been for you?
So it was 2018, I think. There was the new rules introduced, and suddenly giant exodus and giant vanishing of a lot of people. But I've kept using it for. I never drew that content. Not nothing against it. It just wasn't what I was drawing, so it never sort of affected me too much. So I just kept going on through. I kind of enjoy that it's really slowed down. It's picked up since then. I think people are sort of just using it for what it is now. And it feels less volatile than other platforms. I think it is easier to just follow artists and see art and kind of have a feed that's just what I want to see for during the day. But yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I think again, yeah, it is a bummer to lose all those people, and I think the rule is stupid. It was a stupid move, and it really they lost like $1 billion worth of valuation or something, ended up getting sold for a fraction of what they were worth beforehand. But yeah, it's working fine for me. I just like the format. I think it works fine, and yeah, I like it better than Twitter personally.
Have you ever thought about, I guess, or unless if, again, I'm not aware of it, but have you thought about branching out to like other platforms? Like, I know some people like Newgrounds, and I could very much picture your work being hosted on that site and getting like kind of a lot of traction there. I don't know what other big like I had DeviantArt, but I don't like DeviantArt either, to be honest. But yeah, have you thought about branching out to other like platforms like that?
Funnily enough, I did. DeviantArt was the first place I ever posted art online, and that was my first home where I built up a following, quote unquote, and sort of started sharing my art. And it wasn't until that was like the only place I was sharing my art until 2013 when I started Tumblr, and then sort of I slowly built the other platforms. And now I still have the DeviantArt, but I don't ever post anything on it. Newgrounds. Yeah, I could see myself. I have to look into it. I do have a Newgrounds account, I think, from way back when it first started with, Flash cartoons and things like that. Like I remember the OG Newgrounds. So it's hard for me to picture it as a art hosting site. It's still in my head. It's a site for Flash games and Flash cartoons. So I have to go in there and start using it to reorient myself and really accept that it's a place to host art. But yeah, I might start posting on there. I know a lot of artists, or I've seen a lot of artists and animators that have come from Newgrounds. It seems like a cool crowd, so maybe I'll give it a shot.
I wonder if they still do the Flash games. I mean, I can't because like Flash got phased out, right? But I'm sure there's still a way you could develop in Flash and still make Flash games. And I know they have some systems to, I think, oh my god, like backwards compatibility. I think for it, like for
As far
preservation.
as I'm aware, yeah, I think they reverse engineered the games so that I don't know if everything is playable, but I think most of the more popular Flash games you can actually still play on there via whatever they've used to adapt it.
I guess as kind of talking about earlier, we were talking about Tumblr and how they had the exodus because of like the changes in their policy and being able to host like certain types of content. I know there was like kind of I wouldn't really call it drama because I don't know how much of it was like serious. I think a lot of it was just kind of tongue in cheek, but there was like a Zelda animator, I think, and pretty good like animator, but there was like this joke of like, oh, when are they going to start doing spicy content, and it was like this whole thing, like people were joking about it too. But I guess, have you ever, because I've seen from some of your sketches you kind of do, but like you said, it's not really a focus of your work, or it's usually done just in like sketches. Has that ever been kind of a temptation for you to try and do more risque artwork?
Yeah, definitely. I've got nothing against it. Like I'm not going to say up and down it's something I won't do. It's kind of a if it happens, it happens kind of thing. It really is just a matter of when I draw a character and when I draw a sketch, it's just not the direction it goes in. Maybe I always think to myself, maybe I like clothes too much. I like outfits too much. So I want to put the character in a cool jacket or some cool clothes kind of thing, and that I get distracted by that. So if it was ever going to be risque, my brain sort of goes in a different direction. But I've certainly, yes, it's 100% not something I'm against, and not something that I'll say no to. It's something that could happen, might happen. There are on my Pixiv, there are some drawings that are nude or have like nude versions. I don't think people know because they don't check, but nothing sort of crazy.
Yeah, it's very tasteful.
Yeah. But absolutely, I've got no problem with it at all. And so, yeah, maybe that's all I can say. No plans, but certainly not ruling it out.
Yeah, because I mean, I've talked about it a few times with other people, but I think there's sometimes a hesitation that like if you start doing that, it's like all you'll be known for in a sense, and you'll be afraid of like branching out outside of that. So, but yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Well, we are at like a section I always kind of like to do for these episodes. About midway through, give or take, about midway through the episode. And like I said, I don't know how many of your, how many people are going to necessarily listen to this episode for me or listen to you. If you're new to the show, hello, my name is Mike, host of podcast. Why do I mess it up every time I do it in the middle of an episode?
I'm
The
a
host
podcast
of
buster.
Podcast Pasta. Dang it. Podcast Pasta. I talk to, talk about media. I find myself usually talking to artists and other creatives. But no, what I usually like to do is like keeping in mind that, like, granted, admittedly, a lot of people might not listen to this episode. Are there any, like, I guess, takes or opinions that you want to talk about here that you feel like you wouldn't otherwise be able to talk about due to like the lack of a venue or something? Basically, I'm asking for your hot take regarding art. Go for it. Sky's the limit. Keep within community guidelines, but go nuts.
I hate to disappoint, but I really honestly don't think I have a lot of hot takes.
That's a wuss answer, man. Come on.
Cool. I know. I really like. I've listened to other episodes. And I know you asked the question, and I racked my brain. But like in terms of art, at least, I think there's so many people, and there's so many. Maybe that's my hot take, is that there's too many hot takes. Just like relax, Like I said, it's all about having fun. It's all about drawing what you want to draw and how you want to draw. So stop, people can't police how other people do it, and they can't tell them what to do, or what's the right way of drawing is always bugs me, because there's no right way. It's just whatever works for you. So maybe that's my hot take. But I did rack my brain, but I just can't. Nothing. I don't get heated. I think the problem is as well that hot takes they're relative, aren't they? So you have to know what the temperature is in general before you can give a hot take, and I don't really know what the popular conversation is at the moment around art. There's nothing I know enough about to have a hot take on. So yeah, I've got nothing for you. Sorry to disappoint.
Okay, we'll let this one slide for now. But
I did try and think of something, but yeah, just drawing a blank.
No, yeah, you're all good. You're all good. I noticed for like one of your well, I guess I'll start with this. Like, I think how I found your work, and like the piece that like put me on to you was the Black Sabbath nuns that you do sometimes, where it's nuns, but they're like in really cool biker gear or whatever.
Bad habits.
Yeah, bad habits. So that was the piece that got me to notice your work, but and you might have better insight on this. What so far has been your most popular piece?
I do think, like, collectively, those drawings are probably the most popular. They always do numbers. It always kind of blows my mind how popular they are. But those always do really good numbers. So I think that genre is probably my most successful kind of drawing. I'm not sure what specifically. I think of artwork that's done really well when I did a Shadowrun drawing for the 2 Shadowrun games back in, God, must have been 2018? 17 maybe? After I moved to the UK? Sometime back there, I drew like a crossover drawing of the 2 games, and it got, I don't know if it's the most popular in terms of numbers, but it got retweeted by the developers, Harebrained Schemes, and they all liked it. A bunch of the developers followed me, and they loved it. And so to me, that's sort of my most successful piece, if you want to say, because they're just getting that reaction and seeing that they loved it and knowing that the people that made the game really sort of enjoyed it. That's what I consider maybe my most successful piece. I don't know if it's my most popular, but that's the one that sort of brings a smile to my face when I think about it the most.
Now, I usually like to ask this about artists in general, just to always kind of gauge their interest in it. But I know that a lot of people, like for their art and their work, what they like to do as sometimes a way to kind of build their audience, but also as a way, sometimes for revenue or sometimes, just to do something fun on the side, is that they like to stream their process because their fans like to see, their creativity at work, in the process of creating something. Is that something that you would be interested in doing yourself?
I have thought about it. I think my two things I kind of worry about in terms of streaming art and drawing. The first is that I don't know if I get over the feeling of it's like having someone looking over your shoulder, and that I think would drive me a bit nuts. Like drawing and just knowing people are watching, I think it might change my mindset. And the second thing is I'm very scatterbrained when I draw, so I worry that if I do a drawing stream, if it's focused on the canvas, there'll be points where it stops for half an hour while I Google a movie that I half remember from my youth, and then I go and get a drink or go and do something else, and then I'll come back and be like, oh, right, I was streaming, kind of thing. I think I'd actually enjoy doing it maybe if I was doing it with someone else, like doing a shared canvas kind of thing and just shooting the shit and drawing, and that kind of thing would be fun if that ever comes around. I also thought about maybe streaming games at some point. Like I've got a PS2 set up with a capture, so I thought about streaming some retro games sometime if the stars align, but no concrete plans at this point. Big maybe on that one. But art, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'd have to do it with someone else there, so I could I wouldn't feel so bad about going non-verbal for 30 minutes or something.
I guess I'm also kind of curious because there's always talks about like what software, what hardware you should kind of use for your work. I can't relate to it too much because again, I don't create art myself. Mostly, it's just the most I do is like GIMP for thumbnails. Just to get that general effect or whatever.
Yeah.
But for yourself, I guess if you want to kind of talk more about your process, like what particular tools do you like using for your work? And I guess, again, like if we're taking the perspective of somebody that's a fan of your work that wants to get started creating and making stuff, like what tools would you advise them to use if they're first starting out?
Yeah, well, I've got, so in terms of what I use, I have a Cintiq 22 that I actually won. So I didn't buy it. I ended up winning it part of it at an art competition on DeviantArt, no less. I use that. I use Sketchbook Pro is the art program I use, and Photoshop for touch-ups and things like that. In terms of what I'd suggest to people starting out, maybe it's because I'm maybe a bit old school, but I think tactile traditional media is the best way to start, just with a pen, pencil, or a sketchbook, or paint, charcoal, whatever your medium. I think it's the best way, is that tactile feeling and that permanent kind of aspect of it, because that's what I did for up until sort of university. It was when I started drawing digitally, and even then it wasn't until after university I really started drawing only in digital. Before that, I would usually draw a traditional picture, then scan it in, and then color it using Photoshop kind of thing. So yeah, personally, I think the best way to start is with traditional media. Obviously, the kids these days have their iPads and things, so that might be more accessible. I think however you start is the right way to start, as long as you're starting. But for me, I'd say traditional media is a good first step.
I did, I guess, kind of want to ask too, because I noticed looking through your like work that you did some fan art for I think it's called like Trench Crusade, if I'm not mistaken. Like I think I don't know if it's directly a character from that, but I think you said it was at least inspired by it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's great.
No, and from my understanding, that game hasn't like come out yet or anything like that. I guess what inspired like you doing that piece then? Because I imagine you probably weren't commissioned to do it, right?
No, so that was for. So I have some. I work with Crippled Giraffe Decals is like the name of the Etsy store. I don't know if it's. I think they're going. It might be down at the moment because of Etsy's doing some weird rule stuff. But it's a sticker decal sticker group, and I work with a bunch of artists in that, and they all suggested that maybe we do some because I do think Trench Crusade's out. I think they have 3D printable figurines, so they've got some models out that people can use to print their own figurines. As I understand it, I don't want to, talk like I know exactly, but I do think it's out. I've seen people with the actual figurines. So
yeah, not sponsored section, by the way. I'm just curious.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just a suggestion. We're like, we should do something to tie in with it because I'm one of the artists who draws stickers for Crippled Giraffe Decals is also did some art for Trench Crusade as well. So it was kind of a not a collab, but related to kind of thing. And so that was kind of, and I had seen the art before. Someone else had mentioned it to me, and I looked at it and said, it's a bit grimdark for my taste, but the designs are super cool. Like the artwork's amazing. So that was enough inspiration for me to go, okay, I'll give it a shot and then draw something that could fit in, that I think could fit into that whole Trench Crusade universe.
But no broader interest in the game itself, right?
I've never really, I've never been much into miniatures games. I did actually, there was a brief period where my brother was into Warhammer, so I had to get into Warhammer as well. And I think I bought 2 figurines and painted one, and then I was like, this is super expensive, and never ended up playing it.
I was just curious because, like, I have heard about it too, and like relating it to Warhammer, I don't play the tabletop games, but sometimes I interact with like the other types of the Warhammer video games and sometimes the shows and stuff. And I actually did an episode about talking about like some of my takes regarding Warhammer broadly as a genre, and I was kind of curious and to see how Trench Crusade would develop, in the shadow of like Warhammer. I was just curious if you had more insight into that. But moving on, I noticed in one of your posts, and you kind of talked about here, how you kind of have a bit of an eye for like fashion, and that the characters that you draw are very fashionable, right? And I noticed that's kind of a trend with some other artists. I think I talked to one other guy that he also said he was really into like fashion himself, which was kind of surprising because he does do more like the spicier work where the characters, ironically enough, are not wearing clothes. But no, I guess I guess for yourself, like you have this passion for like, or at least very well this interest for fashion. That's something that you would ever consider I don't know, I guess kind of expanding in its own right outside of just like the wear for your original characters?
Yeah, definitely. I think the passion for fashion, so to speak, comes from my mum had lots of fashion magazines, and so I sort of picked them up and just browsed through them when I was a little kid, and sort of just gained a kind of fondness for fashion shoots and just that whole aesthetic. But definitely, I feel like there's a gap sort of between my drawings and the actual physical piece of clothing that I need to bridge first. But if there was ever kind of an opportunity, to have some clothes, to design an actual jacket or a piece of clothing, then for sure, I think I'd be down for that. This is just, I can't see it from here, like how I'd get to there. But if the opportunity arrives, if the stars align, then for sure that would be a really cool thing to do.
So I guess I'm kind of how do I want to word this? Because you've talked about like your inspirations previously in this episode, heavy metal comics, certain different artists. I guess to kind of highlight more about like again how you pulled or like the inspiration that you pulled into your own style, like who do you think are like the biggest names that inspired your art in terms of like others in the art field? Well, I could have worded that
Yeah,
better. I got to fire my
I
writer.
get what you're
Wow.
saying. I got the gist of it. You got the meanings out there. The worst in.
It was a long
Um,
journey, but we got there. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So in terms of, I feel like my inspiration's kind of like it's a bit of a like. So when I first, yeah, like I said, my dad had comics, so I read a lot of his comics, and I think a lot of artists like Joe Mad and Chris Barkalow, these '90s artists was real stylized. That's sort of when they're starting to move into a bit more of there's a bit of the anime style mixing in there, but kind of doing a bit different. Not trying to be as realistic. I think was when the '90s kind of they started to move a bit more towards like Mike Mignola as well during that period, just like pulpy kind of shadowy feel. And then I started reading manga, and then so artists like Masamune Shiro, who Ghost in the Shell, and Yukito Kishiro, who drew Battle Angel Alita, is my favorite manga of all time. So that's like a huge influence. And then when I went to uni, I started getting into concept art a lot more. So a lot of the Capcom artists like Akuman and Bengus and Matt Rhodes, the concept artist for BioWare. And that's sort of like, those were like the wheel that sort of started turning. And then, these days, just with Twitter, I just feel like there's so many artists I'm inspired by. It's hard to pin it down. There's just so much you see on Tumblr, so much just overloaded with amazing art. That's really hard to pin down particular people that you're into. A lot more, that's what I like about Pixiv. I'm finding a lot of Japanese artists or just sort of Asian artists I don't think I'd find otherwise on there. So, yeah, just a really big, huge variety at this point. But sort of, went from comics. I started drawing for comics, and then I sort of got influenced by manga, and then got influenced by concept art, and then kind of ended up where I am today, which I like to think is a giant mash of all of those together to make something that's uniquely me.
Thing I guess you would say particular about like your particular about your process in making art that you don't think that other people usually do. Like I'm talking about like, oh, I can't make something unless if I'm listening to prog rock, or oh, I have to eat like a bucket of chicken before, like anything weird like that. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, eating the bucket of chicken, I should try that.
Oh, your
But
hands will get greasy.
yeah, that'd be really bad for the Cintiq code and that. So, not that I can think of. Like in terms of what I listen to, it has to be a bit different each time. When I'm coming up with ideas, when I'm sort of sketching and doing thumbnails and trying to figure out, it's usually I've got music on, something kind of thematic that fits the mood I'm going for. So it's usually industrial, metal, or kind of sort of a bit of a rock kind of sound, maybe some techno kind of thing. But then once I've got it down, I'm doing the sort of tedious parts, I guess, like line art and coloring and sort of filling out the details, just making it look good. At that point, I usually put on a TV show or a podcast or something that I can listen to in the background that's long, that's like an hour or more, so that I can just sort of just have it droning. I don't pick it up. I usually don't pick up on what's happening, but it's just droning in the background, so I've got that background noise. But other than that, not really, not that I'm aware of anyway. It might be one of those things that if someone observes me drawing, they'd say, oh, wow, why do you do that? But nothing that I know that I'm consciously doing.
When you're creating a piece or when you're drawing in general, what would you say is the most difficult part of that process for you?
It's kind of the difficult part actually starts before I draw, I think, is that it's just a bad habit that I have a bad habit of drawing without a clear idea of what I'm aiming for. So I'll start sketching without saying, I don't start drawing saying, I'm going to draw a cyber girl holding a gun standing on a rooftop kind of thing. I'll just kind of start sketching and I'll find a sketch that looks good. And then I'll try and backwards engineer. So what happens often is I'll draw a face and I'm like, that face is great. That's a really good face. I love that face. and then I have to try and reverse engineer an entire drawing around that face just so I can share it. And I think that's kind of, I want to start planning ahead a little bit more, I guess. I want to be a bit more forward thinking and say, this is what I'm going to draw. And it goes into, drawing more comics and drawing more scenarios and actual planned out art that actually have a bit of a plan going into it. Because I think that's my issue. Nothing's particularly hard to draw, like things that's challenging if I haven't drawn them before, but there's usually a way around it. But yeah, it's more about the process that I need to sharpen up a bit more and have a bit more forethought going into it.
Where do you sit on the whole struggle with drawing hands? Because I know that's always like a big joke among artists, like, oh man, hands are the worst.
I'm personally, I think they're not that bad. I don't want to, I'm not trying to brag about my hand skills or anything, but I think once you realize kind of that the two middle fingers, the middle finger and the ring finger stick together, have a tendency to kind of stick together, and then you draw the hand as a whole first, so sort of in silhouette, try and sketch the whole shape that the hand's going to be, and then fill it in from there. That to me works for the most part. Once you kind of get the silhouette of it down, and then it's not so bad. But that's just me. I know when some people, I understand why people have trouble with them, but I think I've found a way that works for me, that they're not that challenging.
Yes, as you continue your work as an artist, as you kind of build yourself up, build your platform or what have you, are there any like worries that you have about like your own work, or let's say even your own ability to do what you do as you continue on?
Nothing specifically. I think the fun part about working, having a daytime job that's not very creative, is that like I feel I can draw what I want, and I can sort of, art's just for me kind of thing. Everything I'm drawing, I'm not drawing for anyone else. I'm not doing it for commissions. I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it for followers or anything. I don't really need that. It's just I love sharing it. I love seeing other artists react and sort of having that feedback kind of thing. I guess maybe that would be a worry if I started doing more collaborations or like projects and things like that I have to think a bit more about who it's for and and do it for a person rather than myself. But I don't think that's necessarily a worry. It's just, it's just a new experience and something I have to learn to do, but I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. But yeah, generally speaking, not really. It's sort of, I'm looking forward to many more years of drawing and drawing weird cyber girls for people to enjoy.
Well, we look to many more years of enjoying your work. I guess it's kind of a way of selling yourself too here, because, why not? I think you talked about, I think you said like you collaborate with like an Etsy store to sell. I think from what I've seen, it's like oh my God, what's the word? Like die-cast stickers, if I'm not mistaken, or
decals.
Decals. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Like if people like your work, go ahead and like shout out where people can buy stickers of your work and buy like just in general, like support you as an artist further.
Yeah. Well, I'm Big M Saxon everywhere pretty much. If you Google that, you'll find all my socials. I'm most active on Tumblr, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Pixiv. I'm going to try updating my Instagram more, but I don't really like it as much. So those are the four main ones. And let me just quickly check if the sticker site is still up, because I heard there were some issues with it, and I don't want to send people to a dead link. Yeah, it is down currently. The sticker is crippled giraffe decals on Blue Sky and Twitter. So you can find them there, and he'll update with the website status. We are looking to get them up again soon. But yeah, you can buy stickers from me and a bunch of other great artists with things like skateboarding, Oni, and some cool imagery to stick on your whatever you want to stick them on.
And is it only the stickers there, or do they also do like t-shirt merch stuff, or like I guess what do they offer?
Currently, it's stickers and card, like, little gift cards kind of thing. We did those sometimes for Valentine's Day. It is primarily stickers at the moment, but they might be branching out in the future. But at the moment, it's mainly sticker focused.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I used to sell merch for this show, but I took it down recently. Not recently. I think it's been like a little while ago. Um, it's funny as a side thing, like just to kind of share behind the scenes. When you design that picture of like your cyborg character drinking from the mug, I actually used to sell mugs with my logo, but I exactly like that. I was like, what the hell? How did he know? This is crazy.
You have to bring him back now. It's going to be a hot ticket item now that it's on the thumbnail.
Stop.
I want the
mug. But no,
I wish I could have got one now.
But no, Max, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for coming on the program. For anyone that's listened this far, thank you so much for listening. Max, I guess you want to just reiterate where people can find your art, your work. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, it's Big M Saxon, all one word. And yeah, you can find me primarily on Tumblr, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Pixiv. That's where I upload new art as I get it. And I just want to say thank you to you as well, Mike. Thanks for inviting me on. It's my first podcast, my first ever podcast. It's my first time I think anyone's going to be hearing my voice. So hopefully it's not too much of a disappointment to all those who pictured me with a suave accent. But yeah, thanks very much. It was a pleasure, and I had a real fun time.
Hopefully I do your voice good graces by editing the episode properly. I mean, we'll see where we go with that.
Cut out all my rants if you can. Cut out all my crazy rants about the world.
No, we leave it all in.
Just the good stuff.
You're mistaken the type of show this is. But no, thank you all for, again, joining us. And if you're playing 2XKO, I am accepting all challengers. So bring it on.